Oh, you're here. I'm going to call Tiz. You're going to take your oxtail and then you're going to ground.
Hyaluronic acid.
Hyaluronic acid. New Elvive Hyaluron Plump for dehydrated hair.
Pay attention. 1 drop of hyaluronic acid.
Holds 1,000 drops of water.
And that's why
L'Oreal Paris chose this molecule.
I love how sciencey science is. Formulas with a shot of hyaluronic acid to weightlessly coat hair.
For a 72-hour moisture boost.
Good evening, ladies. It's a different voice tonight. We're just experiencing some technical issues. Lynn's internet has suddenly decided it's not going to work. So she's just restarting her internet. And then we should be up and running in a few moments. Thank you for being patient.
Granny. And then a duck.
Sorry. You're on. We can see you.
Okay. Hello, Seth, darling.
Sorry.
No problem. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me. I am hopefully now connected. For those of you who are connected, I am sure you suddenly saw that I disappeared. And the reason for that exciting happening was because the Wi-Fi has gone down. No explanation, just out of the blue, the Wi-Fi has gone down. So the presentation is on its way to Tammy's house. And when it arrives, she'll put the presentation on her screen. And in the meantime, I will try and sort out and do a presentation from my phone. Just need to plug my phone in. Sorry about all of this. And tonight's one of the first times I realized just before we started, I hadn't sent Tammy the presentation as a backup. So you think, oh, well, too late now. And it's got to be the night that actually everything goes wrong. So after all that presentation, it really is nice to be, hopefully that you can hear and see me okay, and that we're speaking to you out there. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn Bluff, and my background is a nursing assistant, a midwife, and an internationally certified childbirth educator. And really, pregnancy and birth and babies is what I'm passionate about. And I suppose really passionate about getting good information out to pregnant mums and dads early in their pregnancy so that they can really make good informed decisions about their pregnancy and their birth journey. It really is something that is very close and dear to my heart. And so that is why we really try and give people good information that the educators out there can improve their information, and you as a pregnant mum and dad can receive good information and make you stop and actually think about whatever we're talking about that particular evening, which tonight is immunization. The Zoom etiquette, the microphones are muted. You can ask questions in the chat box. I probably won't see them as they come through, but definitely before the evening closes, we will answer all your questions. So just pop questions into the chat box, and filling out the feedback form later will put you in a draw for the giveaways, as well as your certificate of attendance. So please make sure that that gets filled out so you receive what you're entitled to receive. A huge thanks to Jason, Tammy, and Seth, and Des behind the scenes. Des is on his way with the stick with the presentation on them. Apologize for all of this. In case you don't know us at Baby Talk, we've got a huge range of information to offer you. We have got the Expectant Mother's Guide magazine, and the Expectant Father's Guide magazine. You can find them at expectantmothersguide.co.za, and you are able to read the magazines online. There's the Expectant Mother's Guide app that you can download as a standalone app, and you will be able to read the Mother's Guide and Father's Guide on your tablet. And then there is the Expectant Mother's Guide Journey app, where you can access the magazine as well. And both these apps are free to download, both from Google Play and the App Store. So there's no added cost to you to actually have access to all this information. We've got the To Mummy, or the tomum.me digital collated newsletter that goes out once a month. And really that's just to help you access other good evidence-based websites on the internet, so that to make sure that you're really reading good info and you're not reading outdated airy-fairy stuff or fake news. We do consults on birthing options and informed choices, and then we do our free monthly thoughtful childbirth webinars. And our next webinar, okay, is one that is really very near and dear to my heart, and that is Skin to Skin for all mums and babies at birth and beyond. And that is going to be held on Saturday, the 3rd of June, and that runs from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it is one webinar that every pregnant mum and dad and educator should not miss. It really is so important to actually hear about what to do at the time of birth so that you can put your baby actually on the road to health and not on a road with problem diseases. Your babies also will cry less, sleep better, have better brain development, and it's a free solution that's accessible to absolutely every mom and dad out there, which makes it even more important. So please put it in your diaries, Saturday the 3rd of June from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Zoom, or go to thoughtfulchildbirth.coza and register so you get the reminders. Okay, our program for the evening, we will run until roughly 9 o'clock. I know we're a bit delayed, so whenever we finish all the information, we'll make sure that we stay online to answer your questions. That's not a problem. We will have a 10-minute tea break, refreshment break, and that will be around 8 o'clock or so, so you don't have to miss anything to keep yourself refreshed. The giveaways will be at the end of the evening. So what do we need to know about immunization? Okay, so if we have a look at, you hear the word vaccination and you hear the word immunization, and what is the difference? So if we look at what the definition of vaccination is, it's the treatment with a vaccine to produce immunity against a disease. Okay, if we look at what immunization is the action of making a person immune to the infection. Okay, now vaccination saves more lives, prevents more suffering than any other medical intervention that is around. And it really is a big deal. So children who are immune are protected from disease. They can't get the disease and they can't give the disease. So vaccines help your body prepare to fight infection. Now, vaccines contain weakened or killed versions of viruses or bacteria, and they prepare your body to fight off disease. And when a vaccine gets into your body, you make antibodies, special proteins that are going to fight the intruders. Now, once antibodies are produced in response to a vaccine, they become part of the body's immune system. Then, if there's exposure to the natural viruses or the bacteria, the antibodies will fight off the infection. Now, because we have been exposed to COVID, everybody thinks that they are a immunologist and they know everything. And some people have got it correct and they do know a little bit about what they're talking about. But sadly, many people have not got a clue what they're talking about. They open their mouth and you think, oh my word, it would be much better if you closed it, because it's showing actually how ignorant you are on the subject. So we should be familiar a little bit with immunizations, how they work, why it's important, than before COVID actually hit, when people, it wasn't something that was in everybody's vocabulary as it is now. So the infections for which effective vaccines are available in South Africa. The first one is TB or tuberculosis, and we'll be going through a lot of these diseases in more detail. So it's effective against tuberculosis, polio, diphtheria, whooping cough, or also known as pertussis, tetanus, hepatitis B, measles, mumps, rubella, or German measles, as some people know it, chickenpox, hepatitis A, rotavirus, gastroenteritis, cervical cancer, meningitis and pneumonia caused by Haemophilus influenza or Streptococcus pneumonia. The influenza and RSV, which is the respiratory syncytial virus. So there really are a large number of viruses, of vaccines that are really, really important for these little ones to actually have. And some of them are important for pregnant moms to have. And hence why we're talking about it during pregnancy. Now, there should be a slide in front of you now that has got the vaccination schedule on, and it's got the disease. We'll go back and look at it a bit later. And then the vaccines, they are available, and sometimes there are multiple vaccinations against a particular disease, and you can choose which one you actually go for. And that really isn't the important part. It's that you have something, okay? And then the vaccination schedule actually shows you what's due at birth, what's due at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, 6 years, 9 years, 12 years. Okay, so you've got 12 years ahead of you, okay, for this vaccination schedule that is really, really important to actually keep abreast of and definitely keep up to date with. And there are blue dots and there are purpley dots on this vaccination schedule. And what that is really highlighting is that the blue ones are the state vaccines. Okay, so if you went to a state clinic or a state hospital, your little one would get those vaccinations free. It's part of the expanded immunization schedule that they want every baby to be immunized, and so the state covers the cost. And really, South Africa has one of the best immunization schedules that the state actually provides out of the majority of all countries. And it really, really is something that the government has, done a really good job at. There are also optional vaccines that actually are available. I see somebody is asking, are they the only ones that can't see the presentation? No, you're not. Unfortunately, my Wi-Fi went down at 7:02, and the presentation is on the way to Tammy, and then she'll be putting it up and you'll be able to see it. So I'm really, really sorry. We will go back to the slides so that you can see it once the presentation arrives at Tammy's house. And so I'm just talking through it. So give us time and you will, catch up with the presentation. All right, so there are a lot. Let's see. Oh, they're actually telling me the network is okay as well. Now, wouldn't that be exciting after all that? I would need to log in and log out. Let's see. Okay. Okay, great. I'm glad Maxine can see the presentation. You can keep going if it's you, Tam, to the vaccination schedule. Yep, keep it going. Almost there. That's the one. The next slide. Perfect. Okay, so you can see at the bottom, the blue dots are showing you the state vaccines. Okay, and the purple dots are showing you the extra optional vaccines that are available. So the state doesn't pay for those ones, but they are available for you to actually have privately and as optional extras. And certainly if you have the added available cash, okay, it really, really, really is well worth giving your little one as many vaccinations as possible. These are really nasty diseases, and after COVID, all these diseases are rebounding with extra ferociousness, and so we are seeing kiddies that are really, really sick, and so the more that you actually are able to give them, the better you are going to be protected. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, it just shows you a little bit more of a closer view. There we go. Okay, so we are going to be starting that vaccination. Okay, Tammy's telling me I can log in on 2 devices. Maybe let's try this quickly, see if I can actually log in. Give me half a sec. Tam, can you email me my link then? Okay, it's telling me I haven't got connection yet. Aha, that sounds like a positive sound going on. Okay, all right. I think we must just carry on as we were. Sorry, Tam, I can't log in at the moment. It's being a problem area. If you could just move to the next slide and we'll just carry on and sort it out at tea time, I think. Okay, so there's one disease that has been eradicated from the world, which is smallpox, which was done with vaccinations. And to date, the eradication of the smallpox saved millions of lives. It is impossible to know very exactly how many people would have died of smallpox since 1980 if scientists had not developed the vaccine. But reasonable estimates are in the range of around 5 million lives per year, which implies that between 1980 and 2018, around 150 to 200 million lives have been saved by smallpox. And we can really I think that the fact that we've had COVID to deal with gives us a little bit of an appreciation of mass deaths that these diseases can actually cause. And so smallpox has been actually really, really huge, the fact that this disease has been eradicated from the world. Next slide. What we need to do, okay, is look at the risks of getting the natural disease versus the risks of immunizations. Now, have you ever stopped to think about the fact that when you leave your house in the morning and you go to work, how many people actually die on the road in a car accident? Do you think about that on a daily basis? And I probably should have looked up what those numbers are. But we know that the majority of people are going to be safe on the road, aren't going to have an accident, and hence we get in our car and we drive to work, or we go wherever we want to go on the road. Now, the same thing applies with immunization. The majority of immunizations are going to be absolutely safe and not cause any problems. But like those few people a day who are going to get killed on the road, there are going to be a couple of people when they get immunizations are going to react very, very negatively and run into problems. Should that mean that we should stop immunization? Absolutely not. Okay, because of the millions that are going to be helped by that immunization. So we've got to look at the risks of getting the natural disease versus the risks of immunization. So if we can have the next slide. Now, the first immunization a newborn receives is at birth. Okay, and that is the BCG for TB or tuberculosis. Next slide. Now, the World Health Organization estimates that 1/3 of the world's population is infected with a tuberculosis bacillus. Okay, 1/3 of the world's population. And if we go to the next one, in 2014, 9.6 million people became ill with TB. About 1.5 million people, including about 140,000 children, died from TB. And drug-resistant TB is becoming an increasing problem. Next one. So if we look at what is the picture in South Africa with TB, in absolute terms, it's estimated that around 328,000 people in the country fell ill with TB in 2020. This figure is substantially lower than the World Health Organization estimate of 360,000 in 2019, and that from South Africa's first national TB prevalence survey of 390,000 in October 2021. So TB is a huge problem, and in South Africa particularly, it is a huge problem. And if we go to the next one, South Africa is one of the 30 high-burden TB countries that collectively contribute to 87% of the estimated incident cases worldwide. And the country accounts for 3% of cases globally. So we actually see we have a huge problem. And so it is vital that every baby gets its immunization for TB. So adjusting for population size, South Africa is often ranked the highest in terms of incident rate for TB. Okay, so if we go to the next one, measles is a highly contagious airborne disease that affects the upper respiratory tract, which many of these diseases actually do, like COVID. And measles is caused by the rubella virus. Okay, now transmission occurs through direct contact with infectious droplets or by airborne spread when an infected person breathes, coughs, or sneezes. Okay, exactly the same way that COVID was being transmitted as well. After exposure, the first sign of measles is usually a high fever, followed by a runny nose, cough, and a rash. Now, in young children less than 5 years, around 30% of measles infections can lead to complications such as diarrhea, otitis media, which is a middle ear infection, pneumonia, encephalitis, okay, inflammation around the brain, seizures, and death. Okay, so can you start to see how important it is for a baby to have a measles vaccination? Now, if we have a look at it in absolute terms, so roughly measles complications, 1 in 20 little ones who get measles it's going to develop into pneumonia. 1 in 10 is going to get an ear infection, otitis media. 1 in 2,000 is going to get encephalitis, so it's gone to the brain, and 1 in 3,000 is actually going to die from measles. So is measles a serious disease? Absolutely, without a doubt. Okay, if we go to the next one, the key facts are that even though a safe and cost-effective vaccine is available, in 2018, there were more than 140,000 measles deaths globally, mostly among children under the age of 5. Now, measles vaccination resulted in a 73% drop in the measles death rate between 2000 and 2018 worldwide. Okay, so can you see how beneficial it is? Okay, not every baby is going to be 100% protected, but it dropped those deaths, okay, by 73%. In 2018, about 86% of the world's children received 1 dose of measles vaccine by their first birthday through routine health services, up from 72% in 2000. Now, during 2000 to 2018, measles vaccination prevented an estimated 23.2 million deaths, making measles vaccine one of the best buys in public health, and hence why our government actually provides free immunization against measles. Now, although measles was declared eliminated in the US in 2000, almost 1,300 cases of measles were reported in 31 states in the US in 2019, the greatest number since 1992. And the 2019 US measles outbreaks were all linked to travel, related cases that reached at-risk populations or under-vaccinated against measles in the US. And if we look at the next slide, if we have a look at what the measles outbreak update is in South Africa, towards the end of 2022, okay, November, December time, I can't remember exactly when the outbreak started, South Africa had an outbreak of measles. And very, very quickly, this went to all of the provinces except the Eastern Cape, okay? And so we are still busy dealing. This was updated on the 9th of March. We are still busy dealing with the measles outbreak in South Africa. And so there is a special measles campaign. And basically anybody who is under the age of 14 should be given an extra measles vaccine to actually stop this outbreak from spreading. So in the provinces where an outbreak has been declared, the most affected age groups are still 5 to 9-year-olds, with a considerable proportion of cases reported amongst the 1 to 4 and the 10 to 14 age groups. Now, as I say, the vaccination campaigns should therefore also include the children aged 10 to 14. Now, the majority of cases, 70% of them, were reported from primary healthcare facilities, and the highest proportion of cases reported from hospitals were reported in children under the age of 1. So the small newborns, okay, under that age of 1 are particularly vulnerable. And so that is why it is really, really important. And if we had to go back and actually look at the vaccination schedule, okay, that is why the measles is given at 6 months, okay, and so one's got to hang tight until 6 months to actually get it. But heck, when 6 months hits, every baby should actually be getting it. All right, if we look at the next disease, mumps. Okay, mumps is caused by a virus. Mumps spreads from person to person, again, via droplets of saliva or mucus from the mouth, nose, or throat of an infected person, usually when the person coughs, sneezes, or talks. Okay, sounding familiar. The virus may also be spread indirectly when someone with mumps touches items or surfaces without washing the hand, and then someone else touches the same surface and rubs their nose or mouth. Mumps is less contagious than measles or chickenpox. Okay, so again, we know that washing our hands, keeping things separate, okay, actually is going to decrease the likelihood of anybody spreading this disease. But otherwise, all these diseases are very, very similarly spread. Okay, so if we move on, what are possible complications from mumps? Now, before a vaccine was available, mumps accounted for about 10% of viral meningitis reported in the US. And this complication is now really rare. Up to 10% of post-pubertal males experience orchitis, which is testicular inflammation. And I'm sure if you speak to any male, they would not like to experience inflammation in that part of their body. And that is really a common complication of mumps. May involve pain, swelling, nausea, vomiting, and fever. And the tenderness of the testes can last for weeks, which is really, really unpleasant. If we carry on, approximately half of patients with orchitis have some degree of testicular atrophy, but sterility is rare. Inflammation of the ovaries, okay, and or the breasts can occur in females who reach puberty. There's an increase in spontaneous abortion or miscarriage, and among women who developed mumps during the first trimester of pregnancy. And deafness in one or both ears can occur in approximately 1 in 20,000 reported cases of mumps. Okay, again, can you see these complications can really be quite a problem area. So if we look at the next slide, how common is mumps in the US? And due to good immunization coverage, mumps is now rare in the US. An estimated 212,000 cases occurred in 1964, while only 229 cases were reported in 2012. Several large outbreaks of mumps have still occurred in the US since 2006, but mostly on college campuses, universities, etc., where you're getting these young guys all together, and that is when it spreads a bit rampantly. Okay, moving on. How safe is this vaccine? Now, hundreds of millions of doses of measles, mumps, and rubella. They prepared either as separate vaccines or as the combined MMR, as it's known, and its safety record is absolutely excellent. If we look at the next slide, what side effects have been reported with this vaccine? Fever is the most common side effect, occurring in 5 to 50% of vaccine recipients. Moving down, about 5% of people develop a mild rash, and when they occur, fever and rash usually appear That's 7 to 12 days after vaccination. So you don't get it the day that you are vaccinated. Okay, there is that time delay to get that classic rash appearance, okay, after 7 to 12 days. About 25% of adult women receiving an MMR vaccine develop temporary joint pain, a symptom related to the rubella component of the combined vaccine. And this joint pain only occurs in women who are not immune to rubella at the time of vaccination. Okay, moving down, the MMR vaccine may cause a low platelet count at the rate of about 1 case per 30 to 40,000 vaccinated people. Cases are almost always temporary and not life-threatening. More severe reactions, including allergic reactions, are rare. Other severe problems, like deafness, permanent brain damage, occur so rarely that experts actually cannot be sure whether they are caused by the vaccine or not. So we can see it's a very, very safe vaccine. It does enormous benefits, and it cuts down on really debilitating disease and death in children. Okay, so possibly you've heard, does the MMR vaccine cause autism? And actually, there's no scientific evidence that measles, the MMR, or any other vaccine causes autism. And the question about a possible link between the MMR vaccine and autism has been extensively reviewed by independent groups of experts in the US, including the National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine. And there is absolutely no association between the MMR vaccine and autism. And later on, we will actually be looking at where this silly notion, this myth originates from, and explain it a bit more. So if we have a look at what the measles complications are, okay, somebody who gets measles, they've got a 1 in 3,000 chance of getting encephalitis, okay, which is a very nasty disease, as we've spoken about, an infection within the brain. 0.5 to 5 out of 100,000 will suffer from deafness and orchitis, inflammation of the testes, and 30 to 40% of adult men. Sorry, Tammy's, I think, correcting me. I said measles instead of mumps complications. Okay, can't believe what comes out of one's mouth sometimes when it's not supposed to. Risk of having the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. Okay, so we've looked at the previous one. What is the complication if you have the disease? Now we're looking at what is the complication if we have the vaccine. So encephalitis, or a severe allergic reaction, is 1 in 1 million. Okay, if we have a complication of the disease, encephalitis infects 1 in 3,000. Okay, do you see the risk? Okay, 1 in 3,000, if you get the disease, you're likely to get encephalitis. With a vaccine, 1 in 1 million might get encephalitis. And the rest are really mild side effects: soreness at injection site, mild joint pain, rash, and that is only in less than 5% of the recipients. So we can see that really the side effects are absolutely minimal. Rubella, congenital rubella syndrome, 60 to 80% if you get it in the first trimester of pregnancy. Okay, let's have a look at the side effects of vaccines. Okay, the pain at the injection site with swelling is the most common side effect of vaccination. And if you can go to the next slide, Tam, I don't think, yes, there we go. Occasionally crying, high fever, and irritability occur for up to 48 hours after the injection, but again, commonly within the first 24 hours. Again, very similar to the COVID vaccine, the fact that actually you might have a bit of a reaction in the first 24 hours and then one moves on. All right, so the most important thing is to know how to treat a fever. If your child is going to get a fever, know how to treat a fever. Now, if we move down, yes, only about 5% of children actually have these side effects. And this occurs most often with a DPT vaccine, which is diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, or whooping cough, and has led to the introduction of acellular pertussis vaccine that decreases the risk of these side effects by about half. And so that is really, really great. And it's wonderful when these vaccine companies actually can improve things, or a new vaccine comes out and decreases even mild side effects. Now, live virus vaccines have the potential to cause a mild form of the disease that they will prevent. And this is best shown by the vaccine for measles, where we said after about 7 to 12 days, you get that slight rash and the fever. And that is you having such a mild reaction, but you're not really sick and you're not going to get the horrendous side effects of the disease. If we move on, the rotavirus vaccine, okay, and that's against gastroenteritis, okay, or vomiting and diarrhea. The rotavirus vaccine is administered as drops in the mouth, starting from as early as 6 weeks of age. And the vaccine is given as 2 doses that must be at least 4 weeks apart. And the second dose must be given before 6 months of age. And the vaccine will prevent dehydrating gastroenteritis and will reduce hospitalization by as much as 96%. Now, the rotavirus vaccine came into being while I was still around, and, you know, come this autumn, winter, spring, you know, okay, you get this huge gastric problem. The peds wards fill up. They are full of these rotavirus cases, babies on drips, and these hospital wards were full. Suddenly, as soon as these rotavirus vaccines were given, like the hospitals just didn't fill up. Okay, so you can see the hospitalizations dropped by as much as 96%. That is how phenomenal this vaccine actually was. But when you haven't seen the hospitals full with babies from gastro, one doesn't actually appreciate how phenomenal these vaccines actually are and what it is preventing the babies from suffering and hence the parents from suffering. Okay, if we move on, the African Rotavirus Network in August 2019, and it was a decade of rotavirus vaccination in Africa, saving lives, changing the face of diarrheal diseases, sharing ideas and expertise on prevention and control of diarrheal disease in Africa. There are 4 oral live attenuated rotavirus vaccines, which are currently pre-qualified by the World Health Organization: Rotarix, Rotatec, Rotavac, Rotasil. And the African countries, if we can move on with the presentation, African countries utilizing the rotavirus vaccines in routine national immunization programs are realizing their effectiveness and the impact on the diarrheal disease morbidity. About a 40% reduction in hospitalizations of under 5-year-olds with acute gastro following that rotavirus vaccine introduction. And that was reported between 2006 and 2018. And in 92,000 children from the WHO coordinated Africa Rotavirus Surveillance Network, comprising of 33 member states. So yeah, a great vaccine. If we move on, you know, one's often worried, oh, the day that your little one is going to get its vaccinations, they've got a bit of a nose, they've got a little bit of a temperature, should we delay vaccination or not? And it's very, very important that we do not, for the majority of times, have to delay vaccination. Okay. Yes, if your child is really sick with a very high fever, then yes, delay the vaccine until the child is well. But understand the following are not reasons to delay vaccination. So if your baby's got a mild illness, a fever under 38.5, they can still have their vaccinations. If that baby's got diarrhea, if there's got a common cold, a mild respiratory infection, if this baby's prem, if there's a family history of convulsions, if there's cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, chronic illness of heart, kidney, and liver, allergies, eczema, asthma, these kiddies can still have the routine immunizations. They should not be delayed, and we don't want to ever get behind with a vaccination schedule. These vaccination schedules are devised in a very, very important way with these different vaccines. And so we need to stick to that schedule absolutely as much as possible. All right, so to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, that's the question many parents of young children are asking these days. It used to be simple. The jabs were administered free of charge at clinics to protect children against potentially fatal diseases such as measles and polio. They were compulsory. You couldn't go to school unless your immunization card was actually full, correct, and up to date. And so it was a legal requirement. And in some ways, it was a much better system than trying to get people to actually make decisions that they really are not medically capable of making and should be made for them. Okay. But then a study was published in the late 90s linking one particular vaccine to the onset of autism in children, and all hell broke loose. Okay, suddenly many parents became reluctant to have their kids vaccinated. And even though that controversial study was debunked in 2010, and we are now in 2023, many people still avoid having their children immunized and use this absolutely rubbish argument to say they're not having their kids vaccinated because of this. So, which is why we're now seeing many cases of diseases such as measles. And this is what the experts actually really say. Now, during the last big outbreak of measles in 2009 to 2011, there were 18,500 confirmed cases in South Africa, with infants and children younger than 4 being the worst affected. There were 18 deaths among the 552 cases treated at Red Cross Children's Hospital in Cape Town. And while most people who contract measles recover in a few weeks, the disease can pose a serious risk for malnourished children or very young children with weak immune systems, leading to these serious complications, including blindness, encephalitis, severe diarrhea, ear infection, pneumonia. In developing countries, measles claims the lives of hundreds of thousands of children annually. So it used to be that parents vaccinated their children, no questions asked. So how did this anti-vaccination trend come about? And some medical experts believe vaccinations became victims of their own success. And Professor Helen Rees, who's chairperson of the WHO African Task Force on Immunization, she says people have forgotten just how devastating vaccine-preventable diseases are. We've had good protection. We don't see people having these severe diseases, dying, having these horrible long-term complications. And so we don't see that miracle that actually took place when vaccinations for these diseases were all first started. So people used to be afraid of diseases such as polio and measles. Now people don't see polio anymore and think, why should I immunize? And we see these family members or friends suffering from these diseases. The fear of these diseases has waned in popular culture. And this is what Dr. Gert van Zyl from University of Stellenbosch says. There's also a lot of disinformation and belief that certain natural alternative healthcare approaches are safer. Conspiracy theories have also done an enormous lot of harm. So I think what we're going to do there, it's nearly 8 o'clock. We're going to have a refreshment break until 8:10. And then we're going to be looking at how to look at the myths and misconceptions surrounding vaccinations. In the meantime, I will also try and actually see if I can connect again or not. Otherwise, hopefully you've still been able to keep up with the information that we've been giving you. Okay, so enjoy your refreshment break, and we'll see what we can do on our side. Okay, people, hopefully you have had your refreshments, that you're ready to carry on. During tea time, I have managed to reconnect and the Wi-Fi's back up and running, and let's hope we have a bit closer to smooth sailing. However, I do know that there were some questions or comments that were put into the chat box, and I didn't have a look at it before I went off my phone, and now coming on, there is nothing in my chat box. So if you've got any questions or comments that you want addressed, if you could just re-put them into the chat box so I'll be able to see them. Okay, so we're going to take a look at myths and misconceptions surrounding vaccinations. So the one that I said we'd go into more detail is this whole MMR story causing autism. Now, many people trace the origins of this anti-vaccination movement to the now debunked study by the British surgeon and medical researcher Andrew Wakefield. And he published in the medical journal, The Lancet, in 1998, and it claimed a link between the administration of the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, the MMR, and the onset of autism and bowel disease. Now, in 2010, the General Medical Council ruled that Wakefield based his evidence on falsified information, acted unethically, received money from lawyers seeking evidence against vaccine manufacturers. He was struck off the medical register. The Lancet retracted the study, but unfortunately the damage was done, and his study led to a drop in immunization levels and subsequent outbreaks of these diseases. And it really, really is quite a tragic story that although it happened in 1998, that actually these days people are still listening to this. They don't go and investigate properly, and these anti-vax movements actually just perpetuate this utter rubbish. It really is tragic. Now, Wakefield's study has been rejected by the entire scientific community, says Professor Helen Rees, who's from South Africa, and there is no evidence whatsoever that the MMR vaccines cause autism. Now, despite this, some still do believe this myth. And a possible reason for this is that autism is usually diagnosed at the same age as when children get the MMR shots. But that's the only association between the two. There's absolutely no evidence that MMR vaccinations cause autism. So please really do get that straight. Now, possible side effects of the vaccine are too risky. The MMR vaccination can cause seizures in 1 out of 3,000 doses, but one child in every 1,000 who gets measles will develop encephalitis, which can result in brain injury, developmental delay, and ongoing seizures. Dr. Van Zyl likens vaccines to seatbelts, and I think this really is a very appropriate likening. In the majority of car accidents, seatbelts save lives, but in rare cases, they can cause injury or kill people. Still, the benefits of buckling up far outweigh the risks. And very much vaccines are in the same category. In the majority, vaccines save lives. But in rare cases, it can cause a problem to somebody. Another myth is that they contain mercury, which is harmful. And while it's true that some vaccines contain low doses of mercury, most are actually mercury-free. And even in those that do contain mercury, the levels are so low that it's harmless. And your exposure to mercury in the everyday environment is actually much higher than what's in a vaccine. And the mercury that is used in vaccines derives from the preservative thimerosal and differs from the type of mercury that causes poisonings. But because none of us are experts in mercury, we hear the word mercury and we think, oh, okay, it's that mercury and we know it's harmful. But for somebody who actually deals with mercury on a daily basis and understands that compound, it is a very, very different story. Vaccines are superfluous. The body creates its own immunity, is another myth. It's true, the body can create its own immunity when exposed to disease, but the price of becoming immune through natural infection can be high. The Haemophilus influenza type B can actually cause mental retardation. Rubella can result in birth defects. Hepatitis B can cause liver cancer, and measles can be fatal. That is really what counts. Vaccines are designed to mimic the natural infection without causing it. And so your immune system thinks it's under attack, starts building up the natural antibodies. And when you've been exposed to the natural disease and then get re-exposed, your body thinks, I recognize this, mobilizes its immune response. If you already have antibodies from the vaccine, your immune system can launch an immediate response. If you're unvaccinated, pick up measles, your immune system can take up to 2 weeks to produce enough antibodies. Another myth, vaccinations for diseases eradicated in your country are unnecessary. Infectious diseases are easily transmitted, and in our interconnected world where people increasingly move across borders for work and travel, diseases are often only a trip away. And doesn't that bear credence to exactly what COVID did? Within a very short period of time, it was worldwide. Okay, so does it matter whether it's in your country or not? No. People are traveling from all over the world, from the most elite place to the most infectious diseases regions, okay, that you can't say it doesn't matter. In South Africa, the last reported polio case was in 1989, and the country was declared polio-free in 2006. But the disease is still endemic in 3 countries, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. So South Africans who travel to Nigeria, for example, can bring polio back home. And if there's a large enough population that hasn't been vaccinated, an outbreak can occur. And so it's still vital that we actually get these immunizations, whether the disease is really around, that we visibly see or not. Now, during the Soccer World Cup tournament in 2010, American tourists picked up measles in South Africa, and caused an outbreak in the US on their return. The vaccinations should only be halted for infectious diseases that have been eradicated worldwide. And the only one that's been eradicated is smallpox. Another myth, you don't have to vaccinate if everyone else is already doing it. What a selfish outlook to life. The belief that you can get away with not vaccinating if enough people in your community have their children vaccinated is risky. Measles is highly infectious. Very high vaccine coverage, up to 95% is needed to prevent the spread. That means if more than 1 in 18 children isn't vaccinated, your child might be at risk. The best way to make sure your child is protected is to actually have them vaccinated. Now, experts agree that you owe it to your community to get the necessary vaccinations. If enough people are vaccinated, herd immunity does develop. And this type of community immunity occurs when enough people are immunized to prevent the infection from spreading, protecting individuals who, for whatever reason, can't be immunized. Maybe they're allergic to it. or a compound in it and actually can't have it. Isn't nice to think actually that we can do our bit and the community around them to help protect them. You don't have to stick to the vaccination schedule. Another myth. Parents need to adhere to the vaccination schedule if they want to properly protect their children. A huge amount of research goes into when, how many doses are needed to build up immunity. And for some diseases, for instance, yellow fever, you only need a single shot, whereas children receive 4 doses against pneumococcal disease, an infection that causes pneumonia or meningitis. Now, the schedule is also country specific. The vaccines included in our vaccine program are based on the risks that are common in our country. And if you wait until a child is older, it really, really is a bad idea. Now, measles is most severe in young children. They're at higher risk of complications from the pneumococcus. So waiting actually makes no sense. The sooner you can have it, the ideal. Okay, so it was, what did we say, 6 months that they start with the measles vaccine. That is when it should be done at the earliest possible time, because they are most vulnerable when they are very young. Now, flu vaccines. Okay, we're coming up for flu season here in South Africa. We see the seasons changing, the weather is getting colder, the nights are getting longer. Okay, and what comes along with winter? The flu. Now, flu vaccines are developed every year and are different year on year. And the flu vaccine is highly effective against the viruses contained in the vaccine. It's not going to protect against runny noses, coughs, and colds, but it is going to actually help against flu or influenza. Now, chronically ill children, children with immune system weaknesses, children who are at creche are well advised to have the flu vaccine. Flu vaccines can be given from 6 months of age. So if your little one is older than 6 months, they should already now ASAP be getting the flu vaccine. The vaccine will have to be repeated every year to cover the new strains of flu. So what happens is that they take the most common strains in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and they make a new flu vaccine for that year. Next year, it will have mutated. You know how that happens with COVID. Yes, what it was, so many months passed and we got the next wave because it had mutated. And basically the same sort of things happen with the flu vaccines, and that's why it's renewable every year. Now, remember that there's no medical intervention that will provide more benefit to your child than vaccination. So again, you wouldn't think of putting your child into the car without putting them buckled up in a car seat, because we know that children die in car accidents because they're not buckled up. Okay, so we take the same analogy that actually you need the vaccinations because otherwise children die from these diseases. We need to vaccinate everyone from the youngest to the oldest, okay? And so get a grip on the flu and make sure we stop the flu and actually everybody gets a flu injection. Now, is it a cold or is it flu? We need to understand what the difference is, because the flu vaccine is not going to protect against a cold, but it is going to be effective against the flu or influenza. So your system onset with a cold is gradual, whereas with the flu, it's abrupt. Okay, the fever is rare with a cold, but with the flu, you've usually got a fever. You've got slight aches maybe with the cold. Flu, you've definitely got body aches. Okay, chills are uncommon in the cold, but they're very relevant with flu. fatigue and weakness, not very often with colds, okay, but generally with flu. Sneezing with colds are common, okay? The eyes water, the nose runs, sneezing with a cold, with the flu sometimes. Chest discomfort, cough, mild to moderate with colds, and flu very common. A stuffy nose with a cold is common. A sore throat is common, but those ones are less common with the flu. And a headache with a cold is rare, but very common with the flu. So each year, flu causes up to 650,000 deaths globally, the highest number being in sub-Sahara Africa. Over 11,000 deaths related to flu occur in South Africa every year, and almost 50% of those in South Africa who catch severe flu will actually need hospitalization. So flu is a serious disease. A cold is not. That's why we need to know the difference between a cold and flu. Young children had the most cases of symptomatic flu illness and were more likely to spread the flu to people in their household. Among children older than 5 years, 74% had flu symptoms compared to 39% of adults aged 19 to 44. While all age groups can be infected with both COVID-19 virus and the flu virus, the following people are at higher risk for severe disease and death from both COVID-19 and the flu. And those are the elderly adults over 65, people of any age with chronic medical conditions such as chronic heart or lung disease, people with immunosuppressed conditions such as HIV and AIDS, and pregnant women. Okay. Now, flu vaccination is even more important now, given that simultaneous infection with flu and COVID can really result in severe disease. Okay. In the UK, a study from January to April 2020 showed that co-infection with flu and COVID-19 was associated with a 2 times higher risk of death and intensive care unit admission compared with COVID-19 infection alone. Please, we need to remember in South Africa and the rest of the world, COVID has not disappeared. Okay, so we need to still take precautions, have the vaccination, and realize that it is a possibility to get it. Since the introduction in the 1940s, seasonal flu vaccines have saved countless lives and limited pandemic spread. Now, according to the US CDC, the Center for Disease Control, during the 2019-2020 season, flu vaccination averted 7.5 million cases of flu, 3.7 million medical visits, 105,000 flu-associated hospitalizations, and 6,300 deaths. So yes, is it worth having the flu vaccine? Without a doubt. It is important to note that due to non-pharmaceutical interventions such as mask wearing, social distancing, the number of flu cases reported in 2020 and 2021 were reduced. So the flu virus remains unpredictable, and experts are expecting resurgence of cases as population movements and habits return to normal. And we are already seeing that. So RSV is particularly bad. COVID is still around. The flu is starting up. So we need to actually, these things are hitting with a vengeance. And so where there is a vaccine, make sure you actually get it. So how about vaccines and pregnancy? Okay, the top 7 things you need to know. The first thing is you aren't just protecting yourself when you're pregnant by having a vaccine. You actually are giving you and your baby some early protection too. So did you know a baby gets disease immunity or protection from the mom during pregnancy? So getting the flu the Tdap and the COVID-19 vaccines while you're pregnant causes your body to create protective antibodies, and you pass on some of those antibodies to your baby. And this immunity can protect your baby from some diseases during those first few months of life before your baby is old enough to get those vaccinations. But obviously, immunity decreases over time. And then when they are due, according to the immunization schedule, they need to get given their own vaccine. Maternal vaccines are very safe, both for you and your little one who's developing. Now, the CDC and a panel of experts who make vaccine recommendations have concluded that they are safe for pregnant women and their babies. And these experts carefully reviewed the available safety data before recommending vaccines during pregnancy. Now, vaccines are like any medicine, which means they can have side effects. But most people who get vaccinated have no side effects. And the CDC continually monitors vaccine safety, and the most common side effects they see are mild. The redness, the swelling, the tenderness at the site where the shot was given. Now, number 3, the whooping cough, okay, can be really dangerous for your baby. You'll need a Tdap vaccine, okay, as the pregnant mom during the 27th through to the 36th week of each pregnancy. Okay, so anytime in that window of 27 to 36 weeks. The Tdap protects against whooping cough, which can be life-threatening for newborns. About half of babies younger than 1 year old who get whooping cough, okay, need treatment in the hospital. The younger the baby is when she gets whooping cough, the more likely the baby will need to be treated in a hospital. Now, while some babies cough a lot, other babies with whooping cough don't cough at all. Instead, it can cause them to stop breathing and they turn blue. Siblings, parents, or caregivers who don't know they have whooping cough can infect your baby, since the disease often causes mild symptoms in older children and adults. And let me tell you, as a mother who had a child in primary school who developed viral whooping cough, okay, which the vaccine doesn't protect against, I tell you that was quite uncomfortable enough to have to deal with. So I really suggest, as a pregnant mom, you get this Tdap vaccine. Now, catching flu when you are pregnant can lead to serious pregnancy complications. So you think you're pretty healthy, maybe you've had the flu before, wasn't that bad, and things change in your immune, heart, and lung functions during pregnancy, which make you more likely to get seriously ill from the flu. You also have a high risk of pregnancy complications such as preterm labor and preterm birth if you get the flu. Catching flu might also increase your chances for serious problems for your baby. Children younger than 2 years old are more likely to end up in the hospital from flu. So get a flu shot if you are pregnant during flu season. So if you're pregnant now, make sure you get the flu vaccine now. They're available. Don't wait until we move into colder weather and more people catch the flu before actually having your flu shot. Okay, timing is everything. We know all about timing. Week after week, you're tracking your baby's growth, the development, you're counting down the days until you meet your little one. When it comes to vaccines, timing is also important. Flu seasons vary in their timing from season to season. So getting your flu vaccine before the start of winter, as soon as the vaccines arrive, which is usually during March, as I say, they definitely here. This timing helps ensure you are protected before flu activity begins to increase. While a flu shot protects you and your newborn baby, the Tdap vaccine primarily protects your baby. So the CDC recommends you get your Tdap in the third trimester between the 27th and 36th week of pregnancy, that you pass the greatest number of protected antibodies to your baby before birth. This will help keep her protected in those first few months of life. Anyone who's around your baby needs vaccines too. Okay, so newborns do not yet have fully developed immune systems. They're really actually very underdeveloped when they are born, so they're vulnerable to infections. Older children and adults can infect babies with flu, whooping cough, even if they don't feel very sick themselves. And so because of this, anyone who's around your baby should be up to date on all routine vaccinations, including Tdap and the flu vaccine. And that includes the parents, the siblings, caregivers, grandparents, nannies, babysitters. Whoever is going to be exposed to your baby needs to have these vaccinations. Anyone who needs vaccines should get them at least 2 weeks before meeting the baby, because it takes about 2 weeks to develop antibodies after vaccination. And number 7, if you get pregnant again, you'll need vaccines again. Okay, they're not lifelong immunity. Every pregnancy, you need to pass on this immunity to your baby. Okay. COVID vaccines. Okay, COVID vaccines are recommended for pregnant moms, as being pregnant increases the risk for severe illness from COVID-19. So if you're pregnant, yes, you should be having a COVID-19 vaccine as well to protect you. COVID vaccine is safe to get anytime during pregnancy. Obviously, it's never ideal to receive medication, particularly in that first trimester, as that is when the fetus is actually developing. So preferably have the vaccine and boosters as soon as you can pre-pregnancy. If you have the vaccination in the third trimester, baby will get some immunity. But pregnancy predisposes you to severe COVID, hospitalization, increased mortality rates. So don't wait to vaccinate. And it's also safe to have whilst breastfeeding. Okay, we were talking about pertussis whooping cough. Okay, now we said that pertussis is a respiratory illness commonly known as whooping cough, very contagious disease caused by a type of bacteria called Bordetella pertussis. And this bacteria attached to the little hair-like extensions that you find lining the upper respiratory system. And this is what a baby sounds like who has got whooping cough.
There we go. Almost there. There we go. Oh my. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. There.
Okay, hopefully that gave you the idea of how terrible it is to have a baby with whooping cough and you hear it, it's coughing and it just can't get its breath and it can't get its breath. And when there is a vaccine that is going to give some protection, both to a small baby and a bit later for themselves. Okay, it is something that is just so worthwhile. The burden of pertussis in South Africa, hospitalized patients of all ages were enrolled as part of a pneumonia surveillance program in 2013 to 2018. Nasopharyngeal and sputum samples were tested for Bordetella pertussis, and over the 6-year period, 19,500 individuals were enrolled, of which 239 tested positive for Bordetella pertussis. Detection rate was highest in children less than 6 months old. Okay, the mean annual incidence of 17 per 100,000 in the overall population. Highest incidence in children less than 1 year of age was 228 per 100,000. 10 individuals with pertussis died, of which 7 were infants aged under 6 months, and 3 were immunocompromised adults. So for babies under 3 months of age infected with pertussis, 93% were hospitalized, 23% had complications, and between 1.3 and 3% actually died. So please do have your Tdap during your pregnancy in the 3rd trimester. Not only should pregnant mums be vaccinated, but other members of the family should be as well, because the main source of infection for babies is from parents and grandparents. Older people with pertussis don't have the same obvious symptoms like whooping cough as other age groups. So they wouldn't necessarily feel sick, they wouldn't have that whooping cough, and so they might still have then come and visit your baby and very, very easily pass on whooping cough to your little one. Now, pertussis is a cyclical disease occurring every 4 to 5 years. So in other words, there's a huge incident of it every 4 to 5 years. So preventing infections in general, never forget the basics. Your fecal oral transmission is preventable with hand washing. Your respiratory droplets, masks, and your cough etiquette. And 1/3 of all deaths in the world can be prevented by safe sanitation and hand washing. You know, you watch people now that people think, oh, well, COVID's not around, and they're no longer washing their hands, and no longer putting sanitizer on, no longer putting masks on. But actually, we need to remember the basics of hand washing and how important it is and the difference that it does make for many of these diseases. So before and after vaccination, these are estimated cumulative numbers of cases of selected infectious diseases in the US in the 20th century before the advent of a vaccine, as compared with mortality after utilization. So smallpox, 4.8 million, okay, and deaths in 2002, 0. Polio, 1.63 million, deaths now, no, 0. Diphtheria, 17.6 million, deaths, 2. Haemophilus influenza, 2 million, and deaths now, 22. Measles, 5 million, deaths, 36. Mumps, 1.5 million, 236. Rubella, 4.7 million, 20. Pertussis, 1.47 million, deaths, 6,632. And tetanus, 0.13 million, and deaths, 13. So I hope you see the benefit of vaccination. And this is just a very nice graphic depiction of examples of vaccine impact. So these were the diphtheria cases. This was where it was introduced in 1940, and you can see the vertical drop to almost 0 soon after that. Okay, meningococcus, okay, again, that was when the vaccine was introduced and how the graph dropped and stayed down. Okay, polio, again, how it decreased. Haemophilus influenza type B, again, you can see. And then you get a little rise there. Okay, again, measles, 1968, it was actually introduced. And yes, remember, there's an outbreak at the moment. Pertussis. Okay, so if we have a look at hints and tips for parents preparing for vaccination visits. Okay, make sure you have your vaccination card or your Road to Health card so that it can be updated and you know what has been given when. It's very important that you have a record so that you know where you are with your baby's schedule. Your baby should be wearing something that allows for easy access to the upper leg and the upper arm. Remain calm. And it's really hard when it's your baby that you are kind of taking to get these injections and you almost feel as though you're betraying your child's trust. But remain calm because your baby's going to pick up his stress and it will become unnecessarily anxious and scared at the clinic. Be prepared to offer the child comfort directly after the vaccination. For young babies, feed immediately after the injections to comfort the infant. You can even ask the nurse to administer the injections while you are breastfeeding. Okay, it's really interesting what breast milk and breastfeeding can actually do. It decreases the amount of pain that they actually feel, apart from the fact that they're feeling loved and comforted and distracted. For older little ones, bring a treat to the clinic as a reward. Bring a book or the child's favorite toy to use as a distraction after vaccination. Ask the sister to explain possible side effects so you know what to anticipate going forward. Don't plan to do anything else for the day of vaccination. Take your baby home. Keep him quiet and relaxed rather than taking the child out to errands or play dates. Know how to treat a fever. Have a paracetamol syrup in the house before going for vaccination. Don't give it, but make sure that you've got it, that should your child get a fever, you actually have got something to treat the fever with and make that child feel more comfortable. Cuddling and feeding, okay? Studies have discovered an efficient strategy for reducing the pain of injections. Hold your baby on your lap rather than having them lie on the examination table. Let them nurse, drink a bottle or suck on a dummy dipped in a sugar water solution. Okay, breastfeeding is far better, okay? But if you are not breastfeeding, this is what you can do. The physical comfort, the sweet taste, and the sucking will reduce pain in young children. And often babies are soothed so quickly by feeding that they stop crying before they even leave the clinic. Okay, so it's not something that you need to get them all stressed and anxious over. Try a mini baby massage. Apply deep pressure to your baby's leg immediately following the injection. Dull the pain from both the superficial poke to the skin and the vaccine entering the muscle. Okay, don't build up that anticipation or the anxiety about the injection. That's only a small part of the clinic visit. The visit is also about weighing, measuring nutrition, general health. And as soon as your child is old enough, engage them in conversation about visits to their health worker, such as we visit in the clinic so that the nurse can check you're growing big and strong. At home, when your children are misbehaving, don't use the clinic as a threat. If you're naughty, you'll go to the clinic for an injection. Terrible things that parents actually say to their children. This just builds fear for the next time. Reward the child for being brave. Okay, praise him in front of the others. Build their confidence for the next visit. If your child becomes feverish, give paracetamol. Don't give it in advance, okay, because that actually decreases the effectiveness of the vaccine. So it's just being counterproductive. And if you notice anything that concerns you following the vaccination, contact your doctor or the hospital. There is an NICD vaccine booklet, which is from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, and that you can actually download, and it's a very, very interesting little booklet that gives you lots of good information. Okay, at this time of the evening, I'm sure Tammy has sent you the feedback form. We would love to get your feedback, and you can also receive your certificate of attendance, and that would be really, really great. Okay, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat box and we can see if we can answer them for you. And just remember, you are invited to our Skin to Skin 2023 launch on Saturday, the 3rd of June, 2023 at 9 till 1 on Zoom. Book at thoughtfulchildbirth.co.za. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to fill out your feedback form. Tammy's correcting me. I obviously don't know which month I am in when I was doing this presentation, and I have skipped the May presentation. So please don't forget, we have a webinar in May before our special June one. And it's on Informed Choices on the 10th of May. So you can book for that one as well as the Skin to Skin one. Can you all see that there's the link in the chat box for you to click on and fill out the forms? All right. I see you couldn't find it earlier, but I see Tammy's put it up there. Okay, and Kabila, you're asking, is the TB vaccine part of the vaccines included in the baby's hospital card, or do you have to voluntarily ask for it at the hospital? Now, let me just stop sharing a sec. Worked well. Try that again. Okay. So you can see the first vaccine that your little one is given is for TB. It's called the BCG, and it's given at birth. Now, it should be done in the hospital, okay? As well as the polio. Sometimes they don't have stock, and then they say, oh, we'll come back in a week's time or 3 days' time when they do have stock and have it. So you need to ask them, okay, before you are discharged from the hospital, to actually have they got the BCG and the polio, so that your baby can have it. If they don't, ask them if they're going to be getting it, or otherwise contact the clinic you're going to be going to for the rest of the vaccinations. So somebody who's close and competent and running a private well baby clinic would be an ideal place to go to, so that you can actually get it. So the majority of the hospitals will have it. Your baby will have it before discharge. But if they don't, then you need to make an alternative plan. Remember, it's really, really, really important, particularly the BCG, because TB is just so prevalent in our communities. So yes, the majority of the time, the hospitals are going to have stock and give them to your baby while you are in hospital. Okay, Maxine's asking about the measles vaccine. So with your measles, okay, if you have a look at line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, measles, okay, MEAS bio is just the measles vaccine, and that is given at 6 months and at 12 months, all right? But you can actually have the measles, mumps, and rubella, okay? There it's going to be given as the MMR, and there are a couple of different options, and that is given at 12 months. Okay, so you have got that opportunity to do the MMR, okay, because the government doesn't pay for the MMR, and it can be done at 12 months, or otherwise just the plain measles one is free to be given at. Okay, people, I don't know if you've got any more questions, so feel free to put them in the chat box.
Okay, people. Whoopsie. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so we've got a gift voucher for a infant hydrotherapy session at Hydrotopia in Edenvale. And the first one, let's give this, see. The first voucher goes to Portia, and Portia, we need an email address and we'll send off your voucher to you. There's a free consult and that goes to Nkobila. I just need your email address, Nkobila, and we will be in touch with you. Another hydrotherapy voucher goes to Mbali. Oh dear, apparently I'm not sharing my screen. Let's try that again. Okay, so the second hydrotherapy one goes to Portia. Just give us your Portia and Bali have got hydrotherapy vouchers. And then there was another consult, and that goes to Lisa. Lisa, I've got your email address and we can chat about that. Okay, people. Hope you had a stunning evening. See you next time. Terribly sorry about all the problems, the technical problems that we actually have had this evening. But hopefully you've still gained some really good info. And we wish you a wonderful evening. And we'll see you then and around. And have a lovely time.